Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today. This is the January 2024 update on CMMC. Lots of news to report finally this month. And if you need help with this, please reach out to us. So, number one, the Title 32 part of the CMMC rule, which is what the process is, has been released. The Title 48 part of the process, which refers to the DoD procurement process, is anticipated to be released in March. So here's what we know about the Title 32 part of the rule. First of all, it was released on December 26th with a 60-day comment period, which is typical. It was released as a proposed rule, which is what we expect, which means it has to go through the rest of the rulemaking sausage manufacturing process. That means that it likely won't be approved, won't become final until the end of the year, early next year. And we think that there is some possibility that they're going to try to push this quickly because they want to get it in this Congress versus the next Congress. So all of that is where we stand in terms of the rule. The rule is 234 pages, light reading, and then there are about another dozen and a half support documents that come with it. So lots of light reading. Again, if you need help with that, let us know. And sorry, I'm reading some of this because I don't want to miss out on anything that any of my notes. There appears that there's about a 2-year rollout from now, which means 1 year after the rule is proposed. Now, the challenge is if you are one of those folks that need to be certified, there's going to be a real shortage of certifiers come next year. So, and the certifiers won't put you in the queue, and even if you're willing to pay money, until they think that at least that you have a decent chance of passing. So that means there's some incentive for companies to move quickly so they can get themselves in the queue to get certified. You also need to remember that in this rule, there are a few people, maybe 5 to 10% of people who are at level 2, meaning they have access to controlled unclassified information, who are able to self-certify. That's going to be up to the contracting officer. I'm sure they will put out some guidelines in the Title 48 part of the rule that will help the contracting officer figure that out. But they don't think it's going to be a large percentage. But the challenge you've got is what happens if you have one contract which allows you to self-certify, but another contract that requires a third-party certification? Well, kind of the self-certification at that point is useless unless you're not going to bid on the other contract. Everybody has to do level 1, right? Everybody who has a federal contract has FCI, Federal Contract Information. And so that means that you have to do level 1. So nobody's going to get out of this process unscathed. Of course, level 1 is a self-assessment process, so it's kind of the honor system. But if there's a problem and someone comes and looks at things, then you could potentially be in trouble if you've been making up that you're compliant when in fact you're not. And level 1 is purely pass-fail. Either you meet the requirements or you don't meet the requirements. That's the only option you got there. The primes, and it makes it very clear here, the primes are responsible for their entire supply chain all the way down to the 10th level sub. So if you sub something out to a machine shop and they shove out the coding to a coding place, you're responsible for making sure that coding place is compliant. How you do that, they're not telling you, but you're responsible. And you as the prime is who the government's going to come after. The big issue, I think, is external service providers. External service providers include people like MSPs, those IT outsourcers, but it includes a lot of other folks, right? It could be let's say you use Adobe Creative Cloud. Well, that's an external service provider. All external service providers must be certified, and the certification can either be FedRAMP or CMMC, depending on what the cloud service provider does. So if you're somebody like Adobe, that requires FedRAMP. If you're an MSP and you're not hosting a website for as your main point of business. Obviously, you have a website; everybody does. But your main thing is not a cloud-based service. Then you can do CMMC, but you have to be certified before your customer can get certified. So, for those of you who are looking at level 2, you need to figure out who all your external service providers are and figure out what certification they're going to need to have and figure out where they are with those certifications. The question about 800.171 Rev 2 versus Rev 3, still pretty unclear. We're hoping that they're going to make it clear, but we're thinking now that they're going to sort of force the issue, downgrade it to Rev 2, which would make life a lot easier for folks because then they wouldn't be wrestling with Rev 2 and Rev 3 at the same time. There's a change to the not applicable rule. So the not applicable rule before required DoD CIO approval. Now it doesn't. You just have to be able to make a reasonable case to your assessor. So, for example, the rule that says, wireless is secured, and people have to authenticate. What we used to tell people is even though you don't have wireless in the environment, you still have to mark it as yes, because you can't mark it as NA. Now you can mark it as NA if you don't have wireless in the environment, and then you got to go off and document that and explain to the assessor why you mark that at NA. But it's a whole lot easier to convince the assessor of that when they've got the backing of the DoD. On the other hand, where they didn't give you any relief is if you have compensating controls in place where you're not going to meet the requirements of 800.171, but you think your controls are at least as good as what's in 800.171, that does require the approval of the DoD CIO. POAMs, as we've said before, they have a maximum life expectancy of 180 days. Remember, level 1 can't be POAM'd at all. So maximum life expectancy 180 days. No 3-point or 5-point questions can be POAM'd. And now they've even restricted some of the 1-point questions as not POAMable. So you've got to get at least 80% roughly of all the controls in place in order to be able to even have a POAM. And even then, the POAM can only last no more than 180 days. Scoping, as we've said many times, is critical because the smaller you can scope things out, the easier it's going to be to comply. But you got to make sure that the scope is realistic for you. For those external service providers that have a CMMC certification or FedRAMP, you need to make sure that whatever it is you're buying from them is covered by that certification. So, for example, if you have a managed service provider and they have a CMMC level 2 certification for their phone offering, but you're not buying phones from them, well, that doesn't do you any good. There's no cross platform pollination there. So you need to make sure that they are certified for the products that you're using. And that includes, cloud security tools. So your antivirus tool, your logging and alerting system tool, all those will likely have a cloud component. Those folks are going to have to be FedRAMP certified. FedRAMP is expensive, it's painful, and it's time consuming. So, for the folks that are not FedRAMP certified already in terms of your cloud products, that may mean you're required to go change cloud products before you try to get certified. So think about that for a minute. If you need help with that, let us know. All right, the effective dates on things. It looks like the effective date of both level 1 and the self-certification for those few folks that can self-certify level 2 will be whatever the effective date is of this new regulation in the Federal Register. So if that winds up being 11 months from now, then the effective date for that will be 11 months from now. The level 2 certification, they're only giving you 6 months after that. So if everybody waits until this rule is published and then they think they're going to get certified in 6 months, good luck, ain't going to happen. There's not enough capacity to get there. Level 3 and Level 2 contract options for existing contracts will be a year after that. And then the full deployment will be a year after that. So potentially 26, 27 for full deployment, which is a pretty short window for those of you who really haven't done much in terms of getting ready for getting certified. So that's kind of a high level of what's in there. We're still learning. There's a lot of reading to go on. And if you have questions, need help, everybody should need help. It's very hard to do this by yourself. Please reach out to us. Thanks for listening.
Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions offers the complete cybersecurity program for small to medium-sized businesses. They include everything needed to secure your business and meet compliance requirements. Visit our website at turnkeycybersecurityandprivacysolutions.com to learn more.